Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we are doing the What's Next on Leigh Wood, the reigning two-time WBA Featherweight Champion of the world, following his come from behind 7th round TKO victory over Josh Warrington as they collided in a big UK battle on October 7th on DAZN. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel up here. Yeah, it was a good battle between Wood and Warrington, but Wood was getting beat, and he was getting beat convincingly. I mean, I seriously had the fight heading into that 7th round. I think I had Warrington winning 5-1. He was winning that fight convincingly, and Wood didn't seem like he knew exactly what to do to kind of corral Warrington, because Warrington was just in his face and he was landing good shots. And Wood, it almost looked like he was kind of, affected by the weight maybe in this one. But, he just seemed slower, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But Warrington, left himself in the pocket, left himself open, and Wood caught him with a great shot that hurt Warrington badly, and Wood put him down. And Warrington got up, and he was badly hurt, and he turned the other way towards his corner. And I thought the referee made the right decision. I said this when I did the recap, is that I felt like it was identical to when Wood got knocked out against Mauricio Lara earlier this year. I feel like, if that fight would have continued, he would have gotten hurt and gotten knocked out. So I thought it was a good call by the referee to stop the fight, and Leigh Wood retained his WBA title. So now the big question is, what's next for Leigh Wood following this win? Well, Leigh Wood went into it saying, and there was a lot of talk that this was going to be, that the winner was going to be moving to 130 for sure. And right after the fight, Leigh Wood said, he goes, yeah, I'm done with 126. I'm moving up to 130. So I'm not even going to look at the 126 pounders, because even though he's still technically the champion, Leigh Wood's he said this is his last fight at 126. It's too hard to make the weight, and if he does and he stays champion, he's got to make a mandatory defense against some unknown fighter. He's just not going to do that. Leigh Wood is kind of a big-time guy, especially in the UK, and he's sitting right at the top of featherweight, so he wants to accomplish a new task. And, one fight that I'm going to mention prior to getting into the top 10 at 130 for Leigh Wood is the rematch with Warrington. I think there's a high probability that these two guys fight at 130, to leave no doubt, because what if Warrington wins? Well, that sets up a third fight between the two, and they're both at that kind of twilight part of their career, to where a trilogy, they would make a lot of money, and it would be good for both their careers. And whoever comes out of it when the smoke clears can fight for a world title, because there's good options. So besides that, and also you have to factor in that Josh Warrington was winning the fight and he got caught and knocked out. So that does leave the door open for a much anticipated rematch, and I think that's very likely. So, but let's run through the top 10 and see what other options could be next for Leigh Wood following this victory. So we start with WBO champion Emmanuel Navarrete. Would love to see it, but because they're with different promotions, I don't think it happens. Navarrete is a hot choice right now at 130. He's fighting Rodson Conceição. If he beats him, he moves up to 135. Most likely they're talking about him fighting either Loma or Shakur Stevenson, but they're going to stay in-house with Top Rank, so I don't see a fight with Wood being on the table. Then there's Oscar Valdez, the former two-division champion. Would love to see the fight. Wouldn't be a bad first fight for Wood, but Valdez is a top-ranked guy, so I highly doubt that Valdez gets the crack at Leigh Wood. Then there's Joe Cordina, the undefeated IBF super featherweight champion. I think this might be the other likely option. But where I think it's not going to happen. So first off, Cordina's fighting Eduardo Vasquez in November. Probably going to walk right through Vasquez, my opinion. He's probably going to beat Vasquez without a problem. But that's an optional defense, and mandatory is probably going to be due after that. So I think Cordina's probably going to have to make a mandatory defense prior to fighting Leigh Wood. But I wouldn't be surprised if the IBF just said, okay, we're going to grant Cordina the right to fight Leigh Wood, and then he has to make a mandatory in the second half of the year. So I do think it's possible. Then there's WBC champion O'Shaquie Foster. Well, Foster is having ties with DAZN in his next fight. He's fighting his mandatory Rocky Hernandez. Foster would fight Leigh Wood. I don't think Leigh Wood wants to fight a guy with Foster's style, especially when he has other better options. So I don't see this one. Then Hector Luis Garcia, the WBA champion. I personally have him beating his mandatory Lamont Roach Jr. next, but he's also a PBC guy. So I don't see these two guys locking horns for, Leigh Wood going over to the PBC side or Garcia being invited over to DAZN. I just don't see the two sides working together because he has better options. Then there's former champion Shavkat Rakhimov. Would love to see this bout, but I don't think Eddie Hearn would want to throw Rakhimov against Leigh Wood prior to Wood getting a crack at Cordina. I think he's going to structure this one out nicely and not put Leigh Wood in that kind of a fight, even though he could make that fight easy. So it is possible, but I don't see it happening. Then Zelfa Barrett's next, the former world title challenger. Now, he's an all-British fighter, but he's got a difficult style to deal with. And I don't think Eddie Hearn wants to match Wood up with Zelfa Barrett, at least not in his next fight. Then there's Lamont Roach Jr. Now, Lamont Roach could become your next WBA champion, and he works with DAZN as he's with Golden Boy. But I don't see him, and I don't think Roach is going to beat Garcia. But if he does, I don't think Leigh Wood's gonna show attention to a guy with Roach's style when he has other better options, with Matchroom. Then former champion Roger Gutierrez. This one is interesting. I really wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Gutierrez was Wood's first opponent at 130. But I don't think it's gonna happen, but I wouldn't be surprised. And then finally, Mark Magsayo, who hasn't even officially moved to 130, but he is a PBC guy, so I'm gonna say I don't see this one. So for Leigh Wood, all honesty, all cards on the table, I really think a rematch with Josh Warrington happens. I think Warrington's pissed. I think he wants to move to 130. I think these guys will make a lot of money fighting at 130 in a rematch. And if Warrington were to beat him, then that just sets up the possibility of a third fight. And both those guys, in their twilight, a trilogy can take up all of 2024. And then when the smoke clears, they can either retire or shoot for a title shot against Joe Cordina if he's still champion. But I also think Cordina's a possible option for Leigh Wood too. Say Cordina gets past Vasquez without an issue, and then comes back in the spring and fights his mandatory, or the IBF grants him an opportunity because it's an all UK battle to fight Leigh Wood. I do think it could happen. So I do think Leigh Wood and Joe Cordina could happen next, but I don't think it's going to. After that, it's kind of a crapshoot. You don't really know. It's kind of up in the air. But I really don't think Eddie Hearn wants to put him in harm's way when he has other big fights. So I really believe in my heart it's going to be Leigh Wood and Josh Warrington too in a rematch next during the spring. I think these two guys are going to lock horns and both debut at 130. But I do think there's an outside chance that Wood gets a crack at Cordina. And then I also think there's an outside chance that he just comes back and fights whoever just to make his debut at 130. So that's it. That's what I got. That's my what's next on the reigning two-time WBA featherweight champion of the world at 126 pounds, Leigh Wood, following his 7th round TKO victory over Josh Warrington in their all UK battle. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.